to go on a rant than the one that I just went on.
Welcome to another live episode of the Wisco Fanatics Show, where we discuss the Packers, Bucks, Brewers, Badgers football, and basketball from an optimistic perspective. Wisco Fanatics is brought to you by Cardboard Legacy, Wisconsin's most complete sports card shop. Buy, sell, grade, and consign all at their location in Oshkosh.
So luckily, this show doesn't start at 3:59 and a half minutes on the days on Wednesdays. It's been a week. Let's say that. I will say I enjoyed my time at the Senior Bowl. What's up, Reggie? But let's just say that things going on in the realm of Wisconsin sports over the last week has brought out a lot of people that really just need to think before they speak and think before they hit post, send, comment, whatever it may be. And I'll just leave it at that. Think before you speak. Just leave it at that.
I'm just going to say that they're probably the people that are wearing the new Apple headset while they drive. That's all I'm going to say. I could see a couple of them doing it. But
we'll get to the individual subjects. We will get there. So we're going to start with Badger basketball. Reggie's happy with the Packers hires. We did discuss those on Friday night. We discussed Jeff Hafley on Friday night. So if you do want to hear our thoughts on Jeff Hafley, Friday night's show has it. So you can find that on Facebook, YouTube, and podcasting apps.
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to start with the Badgers game against Nebraska. I'm going to let Mike go first because when I go last for Nebraska, I'm going to go first into Purdue because I want to say things that kind of encompass the week. So, Mike, what stood out to you from the Nebraska game last week?
Unfortunately, it didn't end up going so hot. Pretty identical to how it ended last year, unfortunately. But I will take a positive out of this on my first take. I got Max Klesman as take number one. Yes, he did have four turnovers in this game, but he also, showed some, positive moments, particularly, in the second half, we give up that lead, right? We're tied at 52 with 8 minutes and 40 seconds left. And he showed spurts like in other games in the past where he scored 20 consecutive points, 10 consecutive points, whatever it was. This is one of those games where once again he shows up and scores 11 consecutive points for the Badgers when we were going through a frickin' dry spell, to say the least, when we could not get on a roll here. So, what was it? Yeah, he scored 11 consecutive points to get the lead to 6 with about 3 minutes remaining. He kept us in it. Like I said, going through that dry spell. And I think really importantly that he held Keisei Tominaga to 1 of 7 shooting, which, going into the game, I talked about him. I know that he's a menace in the Big Ten in general. So, I mean, if there was one positive that, I could take from this game personally, at the end of the day, it was Max Klesman, both offensively and defensively.
I like it. Yeah, rip your second one right away.
Yeah, for sure. So, unfortunately, I do have to go with one of the negatives in this game, and that was the turnovers. It was a season high. We had 16 of them, which was absolutely, I want to say, it wasn't like us because these 16 turnovers led into how we played in games similar to last year where, we ended up going back to our old ways, and whether that was hanging around the perimeter, putting up garbage shots, which sometimes led to turnovers right before that, or, it just brought us out of sync. And playing at Nebraska is the next house of horrors. I don't know why, but, I guess it is. It led to a lack of energy, I thought, this second half. It completely stopped. Yeah. So I just wanted to go through, most of our main players. AJ Storr, he had 5 turnovers. Max Klesman, as I mentioned before, had 4. Chucky Hepburn, who I thought played pretty well for the most part, he had 2. Stephen Crowell had 2, and John Blackwell had 2. So it was a whole collection of the team for, getting these 16 turnovers. We could have used that extra timeout as well in the second half, if you guys know what I'm talking about. Unfortunately, we had to burn one in the first half when Tyler Wall called it. He made a hustle play. That's fine. But we definitely could have used another timeout in that second half to calm the guys down a little bit because we were starting to lose it a little. So, it's just something we have to clean up because, like I said, this led to a lack of energy. It led to our play style going to shit as well. We completely stopped playing through the post, which I thought was completely, I don't know, miscalculated there. Because going back to my Max Klesman point, 6 of his points were on 2 consecutive threes from getting post touches into Tyler Wall to kick back out. So why'd we get away from that? So life on the road, man, in the Big Ten, it is what it is. This was a bad loss. I know Nebraska, they are a tournament team, I think, this year. But this is just one of those games that you just cannot let slip away, especially when you give up a lead like that. And, we just have to, rise above that going forward on the road specifically.
So I want to address one of the things you said. First, I'm going to go to Barry in the comments. Yes, Barry, I have a little bit more sunshine than I normally get because I was in Alabama last week, but it took sunburn to get there. So beauty is pain. Anyways, as far as the Badgers are concerned, listening to you talked it through that the way the Badgers lost their lead was by not playing like the Badgers. So a little foreshadowing because I'm going to come back to that in a future segment. So, Jake, what 2 things stood out to you from Nebraska?
It's going to be a good segment because I agree with you. So I got some things to tell you. I'm going to start with the sad. Sorry. Let's just get it over with, boys.
We're bad news. We're bad news first, guys. That's us.
Yeah. So Nebraska loves playing in their home court. They're 14-1 this year in their home court. 14 of their 16 wins are at their home court. The Badgers, on the other hand, 2 years in a row have blown big leads. Last year we blew a 17-point lead, and this year we blew an 18-point lead. And here's where it's going to hurt. I'm sorry. Wisconsin, since the year 2000, is 120-0 when leading by 15-plus points.
Yep.
That was the first one.
Yep.
Yeah. It was bound to happen.
Right.
It's like Tyler and I have said on this show before. If there's a stat in sports that is going to happen, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Can't stop it. That's why we love sports. There's always a chance for something crazy to happen, a crazy shot, a crazy home run, a crazy pitch, a crazy pass, a crazy tackle. Something crazy is going to happen.
Every outcome that can possibly happen is going to happen at some point.
It's going to happen.
Yep.
So,
what's up, James?
The Badgers. And it is what it is. So, my first takeaway, and both my takeaways kind of play off each other. I picked Chucky in first half versus second half. So Chucky, he ended up scoring 13 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. He shot 6 of 12 from the field and 0 of 5 from 3-point range. Now, the 3-pointers, that doesn't worry me as much. Would I like him to make more 3-pointers? Yes, I would. I would like him to shoot with a little bit more confidence from behind the arc as well. But he went on a 9-4 run to close the first half. And it was like, okay, Chucky's balling right now. He's kind of carrying. He wants to send a message because he was getting booed every time he touched the ball. And, this was only the 7th game this year that Chucky had double-digit scoring. We need more from Chucky.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he's doing a tremendous job at what he's doing. He's trying really hard on playing defense. He's trying to set other guys up. He's a tough rebounder when he wants to be. But the reality of the situation is he needs to be a scorer as well. He needs to be a 15, I would say 13 to 16 point per game scorer. And if you could do that, you could be one of the best point guards in the Big Ten, which is obviously one of the better conferences in college basketball. I'll let people make whatever argument they want. I'm not going to say Big Ten's the best, even though I might be biased in that argument. And he just needs to score more. So
it was just a couple weeks ago that I brought up that Chucky Epper needs to up his efficiency back to how he was 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Now you get into the first half or the second half argument, right? And I already told you that Chucky finished on a personal 9-4 run. He scored all 9 of those Wisconsin points. So 9 of his 13 were at the end of the first half. This is the Badgers, and this is bad too. First half, we shot 55% from the field goal. Second half, 36% field goal percentage. We had 11 total field goal makes and 10 turnovers. That is a recipe for getting your ass whooped, especially when you have a team like Nebraska that was just building momentum. And Tyler pointed out a couple weeks ago that momentum might be the most important in college basketball, right? And there was a big time three. Do not remember the kid's name. I apologize.
Wilcher, who
he started pounding his chest, started telling the crowd to get louder, and those kids just feed off of that. And from that moment on, if you're a Wisconsin fan, you did one of the gulp, like, we're in big trouble. So the Badgers were in a tough situation, and Purdue lost there as well. A lot of people lost there. I should have looked up the team that beat Nebraska in their house. But, it is what it is. But the statement I was going to say is Tyler was foreshadowing. The Badgers stopped playing like the Badgers in the second half. They really got away from staples of their offense and their team. So I'm going to let Tyler go now.
I appreciate you giving a call back to me. I appreciate that for my comment on momentum in college basketball. James said the cool thing about sports, real life sports over video games, is in video games things have to be programmed to happen. In real life, craziest things can have and will continue to happen. And that's strongly agree. I'll give you one crazy example is Tracy McGrady scoring 13 points in 33 seconds. That sequence is wild. And that happened to a dynasty.
Yeah, it did.
That happened to the Spurs dynasty. So things can happen. Things will happen. Sometimes it'll happen for the teams that we cheer for. Sometimes it'll happen to the teams against that we cheer for. So stuff happens. It's not a reason to overreact and act like the Badgers haven't been a good team to this point, or that they can't be a good team in the future because of this past 2 games. So first thing I want to talk about, and this is going to tie into the Bucks a little bit as well, because the Bucks on Saturday against the Mavericks got down by a big chunk and came back to win. The Badgers got up by a big chunk and ended up losing. This is one of those situations where people are choosing to live to complain. Because when it comes to the Badgers, they choked by not keeping their lead, by losing their lead, by not winning when they had a big lead. However, when you go to the Bucks, it's, they never should have been down by that many points in the first place. That is the problem in the mindset if that is the way that you are looking at these 2 specific games and just leads in general. First of all, basketball is a game of runs. Second of all, if you can apply a certain mindset to your team, apply the opposite to the other team, and then give them credit for doing things well. We need to normalize respect for our opponents when they do things well. Credit to Wilcher. That dude caught fire.
Yeah, he did.
I bet it felt awesome. Credit to him. He made really tough shots. I don't have a problem admitting it. It's not like you can't just go rewatch the game and then be like, no, he didn't make any tough shots. The Badgers made the shots for him by playing bad defense. That's not how it works. We need to normalize giving credit to our opponents when they do things well. It's not always the teams that we cheer for have absolute control over everything, and the Badgers should have kept a big lead. Bucks never should have gotten down by a big chunk, and never say that the opponent has any say in the outcome. So that's my first thing. I want to talk about A.J. Storr and Tyler Wall. So A.J. Storr, similar to Chucky Hepburn, great first half, kind of a rough second half. So A.J. Storr in the first half, he matched his total from the first time the Badgers and Nebraska played in the first 5 minutes and beat it in 6. So A.J. Storr got off to a great start. This was even still, though he didn't have as good of a second half, the first ever back-to-back 20-point games of his career. So that's good for AJ as well. Like I said, tale of 2 halves. He just couldn't really get his rhythm. He made a massive, massive 3 towards the end of the game, and then he missed an elbow jumper in the overtime. Stuff happens. James said that's the problem when your favorite is everything you do wrong will be under the biggest microscope. It doesn't even have to be the favorites. Like, I get the Badgers are ranked number 6 and that the Bucks are considered contenders, but it boils down to the mindset for anything. More than what the perception of what success looks like.
Yeah, but we even tried to tell you guys last week on this show. I know for sure that I did. I know for sure Mike did, and I know that Tyler was agreeing that don't overlook this Nebraska game.
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska's good at home.
Hell no, dude.
We were saying that on here because everybody was looking at the Purdue matchup, and I understand. But this kind of became a trap game for a lot of fans, which is why I think the reactions that we got.
So the other thing I want to do is give credit to Tyler Wall. Mike already kind of touched on this run, but Nebraska had come back to tie the game. Tyler Wall was on the bench during that time. Tyler Wall came back in. He had a hand in forcing 2 turnovers and assisted back-to-back threes by Max Klesmit. So the game was tied. Tyler Wall helped force a turnover, assisted a 3 to Max Klesmit. Nebraska came back down. Tyler Wall helped force another turnover and then got another assist to Max Klesmit for another 3. I will be talking more about Tyler Wall in a future segment. Spoiler alert. Probably should have said spoiler alert first, but I'll leave that at that. Okay, so let's switch over to Purdue. Now, like I just said about normalizing and giving credit to your opponent. First thing I want to say from the Purdue game. Can we just take a step back from the fact that we are Badgers fans and the team that we cheer for lost this game and just admire the fact that this was a great college basketball game?
It was fun.
The energy was there. Like
yes, it was. I'm glad you brought that up.
The energy was, is what stood out. I mean, obviously, did everything go right for us? Absolutely not. But the energy, both sides, that's what really stood out, I would say. Good or bad.
That's what makes college basketball great,
mm-hmm.
is the atmospheres of the games. So I will say, I cannot wait for the next time the Badgers and Purdue play. I think it's going to be another great basketball game. Because even though Purdue led basically the entire game, and at one point the lead was 10 briefly, this game was almost single digits the entire game.
Mm-hmm.
There was not a single point at which Purdue felt comfortable that they were going to win the game. So the Badgers right there. And that's going to tie into my second one, which is the lay of the land of a 6-point loss to the number 2 team in the country. And I know Mike's going to touch on second chance points, so I'm going to leave that for him. But Badgers only turned the ball over 5 times. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
They shot 3 of 19 from 3, 16%. That is not fantastic. However, you look at things like points in the paint. The Badgers outscored Purdue 44-34.
Yeah.
Bench points. The Badgers outscored Purdue 11-2.
Yeah.
And then looking at Purdue also only made 3 3-point shots. I just brought up that the Badgers outscored them in points in the paint, meaning that the Badgers forced Purdue to beat them in the mid-range. Shout out to Greg Gard. That is what you want to force Purdue to do. I brought up last week as one of my goals was to not let Purdue's 3-point shooters take over the game. And they didn't. They made their mid-range shots, so credit to them, but the Badgers ran them off the 3-point line, and Purdue made a lot of mid-range shots, and they won by 6 against a team that shot 16% on threes. So, like I said, I'm very much looking forward to the next time the Badgers and Purdue match up, but I'm going to get to a couple of comments from James here. He said, I played sports almost my whole life. During the game, the only thing you worry about is making the prepping, making the proper adjustments, and coming out with the dub. After the game, when you get back to practice and watching film, that's when you worry about what you should have done and work to fix that. And that's true. He said, it's not the same thing, but when coaching youth soccer, never once said to my team after a game, we should have never been down by 2 goals. Yeah, we won, but that shouldn't have happened. Show respect to your opponents. They're out there working for the same thing no matter what their record is, and that is absolutely a fact. And you look at whatever teams you're talking about, whether it be basketball, football, whatever league you're looking at, all of the people that they're going against are their peers.
Yeah.
It's not like, I get that you have differences in experience, and you can, you have, upperclassmen versus lowerclassmen teams and things like that. And obviously you get rankings and things like that taken into account, but you look at it in college basketball. These are all college basketball D1 athletes. You look at the NFL. These are all professional football teams, even if some are better than others. You look at the NBA. They're all professional basketball teams, even though some are better than others. These are all peers. Nobody's taking, NBA teams and going to play a college basketball team. That's not what's happening. The Brewers aren't going to play somebody's AAA team next year.
Yeah, like when they used to make the argument that the best college football team would beat the worst NFL team. We're not doing
Not
that.
a chance in hell.
They would get their ass whooped so bad, dude. It's not
They
even
would get destroyed.
destroyed.
Not even remotely close. All right, Mike, what 2 things stood out to you against not 122-6?
Oh yeah. So I'm gonna do a quick call out first off. You said like the bench points, we won like 11-2. And then that kind of ties into, well, this is a separate point, but I thought we did pretty well on Zach Edey given the circumstances. I mean, he ends up with what, 18, 13. But I mean, Nolan Winter, you saw him make great defensive plays on him. Stephen Crawl held the zone, I thought, as well. But I thought overall, like you said, we were making Braden Smith played one hell of a game, I think, making those mid-range shots. But I thought collectively we did a good job on Zach Edey. And just looking at this bench, if we can get Zach Edey in foul trouble, man, this team, oh man, we're not like superior. We're like, this is Purdue maybe right now. I think we're literally right here. If any, we're not too far off at all in my view. This was like I said, with the energy, both sides came with it. A lot of balls didn't fall our way. I took this game similar to like Tennessee, I would say. If you remember that game, 2 great teams playing. That game was just high scoring, but we just couldn't get enough stops consecutively just to get over that hump. And unfortunately, it didn't go our way. But I did want to bring up Tyler Wall in this game because this might have arguably been, you got to check the stats, possibly his best game of his whole Badger career. And that's saying a lot. That's over 100 games, right? So Tyler Wall with 7'4", Zach Edey guarding him for the most part, mind you. 20 points, 7 rebounds, 6 of those rebounds offensive. 5 assists and 2 blocks. 10 of 16 shooting. This dude was making shots over, like I said, over 7'4" Zach Edey. I think this was his best game of his career. I will say that right now. He was phenomenal. He looked, as far as polished in terms of execution, he was up here.
Everyone else might have been down going. Here. Oh, yeah, fantastic.
He was vintage, and he cooked Edey a few times, which was great to see. He was the leader, no doubt in this game either. I mean, shit, man. If he can put that together consistently, we're going to be in a Final Four for sure. But no, props to Tyler Wall. He was definitely by far the best player you could even say on the court. Honestly, I know we lost, but it is what it is. But second point being, a lot of ball. Like I said, the energy was great, but the second chance points, unfortunately, a lot of balls fell in Purdue's hands.
Yeah.
And the rebound, I mean, whether it came down to rebounding, which they did win overall 42-29, or, just with like getting loose balls or anything along those lines. We did lose the second chance points battle 21-14. But I do one specific play, which I think kind of defined how this game went. When I mentioned before, we couldn't generate consecutive stops on a consistent basis. So Zach Edey was at the free throw line. They were up 59-57 with 4 minutes and 46 seconds left. I mentioned this in the chat. He misses, but the Badgers gave up a second chance opportunity on a rebound. Then we get the ball coming down. Max Klesmit gets fouled. He's at the bonus. He gets an in and out free throw at the bonus and misses it. It's just one of those things where we had the opportunity to tie it up, but we stayed in that 2 to 8 point region, and we just couldn't get over that hump. And it was the same thing as that Tennessee game. So I think that sequence right there is kind of how this game was defined. We just couldn't quite get over that hump. And but that's as far as energy it was great. The Kohl Center, oh my God, I hope that can somehow stay the rest of the year for our home games. We're going to need that.
Oh yeah.
It was such a joy to see because that's what it used to be like. I mean, these last couple seasons at home, I mean, I've criticized it myself on social media or, even in you guys in the chat. Like, the Kohl Center seems like a goddamn library right now. Well, Sunday was different, So energy was great. Just got to finish. Like Tyler said, I'm looking forward to playing these dudes again. Whether that's not just at their place, but also hopefully in the Big Ten tournament, maybe. So,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Purdue's a great opponent. Braden Smith is a dog. It's going to be one hell of a matchup.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to go back to a handful of comments before I let Jake go. Michael said loose balls just seem to find Purdue, which absolutely seemed to be the case. Like just bounces and rolls just kind of seem to go Purdue's way a little bit. And that stuff happens. Like I'm not saying that like Purdue got lucky or anything. That stuff happens. That's all within the realm of a basketball game. Mm-hmm. And they kept making shots, which is true. He said great insight. So good job, Mike. Go Badgers. Wall was awesome. Agreed. That's all facts. Brett said, looking forward to the Bucks section. Yes, that is going to be fun. We're going to address some of the misconceptions with the Bucks. And then James said, people have been making the argument about that, referring to college football versus NFL teams back to the 60s when college all-stars would play the NFL champs and won a few times. Like we still live in that world. I guarantee you people that would bring shit like that up would say that basketball is different because in the 90s they used to let people close on each other. Probably the same people to bring that stuff up.
Yeah, they used to take each other's socks and shoes off and tickle their feet before they would make a layup. I mean, what the hell are we talking about here, man?
Yeah. As if the 60s aren't closer to 100 years ago than they are to when they actually happened.
Yeah, right. That's wild, actually.
Okay. So, Jake, what stood out to you from the Purdue game?
Well, there's a lot of stuff. First of all, that man traveled and he was out of bounds. Just going to get that out of the way right now. Okay. That's whatever. He was out of bounds. I don't want to hear anything about it because he was definitely out of bounds. First thing I'm going to talk about is Connor. Now, he got a lot of tough love this year, and from the fan base, from the coaching staff, probably from himself too. Probably some critical thinking and self-reflection on his own part. And I think that it's worth it because I think it's time to release Connor Essegian. He's paying more attention on defense, and I know that Max Klesmit is much better on defense, but Max Klesmit is either gonna carry you on offense or he's gonna be super quiet.
6 points.
And I feel like Connor is a guy that ultimately, when he comes into the game, the defense has to pay attention to him. They know that he has the range, and it spreads everything out a little bit, which is a good thing for guys like Tyler Wall and AJ Storr, right? Because then you get bigger driving lanes.
How would you feel? Let me just throw out a hypothetical in there. And I know they actually said that John Blackwell is questionable for tonight's game against Michigan, but
yeah.
How would you feel about John Blackwell and Connor Essegian being the first two guys off the bench so that you can maintain good defense with John Blackwell and also get a shooter on the floor in Connor Essegian? So if you take out Max and Chucky, that you're not losing anything, you're still losing defense because those two are both really good defensively, but you're still maintaining just as much potential offensive firepower.
Well, then you still keep the offense because Blackwell is really good in the corners, and he's actually the person that made the 1 3-pointer. The defense was, or the bench was 1 for 9 in this game.
Let him run a little more true point guard instead of he's playing more like a 2 almost.
I agree with that.
So let him run a little more true point guard and let Connor run the 2.
You're seeing Blackwell bring the ball up a little more too, so as the season progresses, and hopefully, even starting next year, we could see that even more consistently.
Starting
and going small ball, which I could see, especially with Tyler leaving. So I mean, that's besides the point. But yeah, go ahead.
So the reason I say that is he was bailing us out on a couple occasions. I mean, there was one possession in the first half where the shot clock got down to 1, and he had to take a tough baseline jumper mid-range, and he just cashed it. And I'm just like, whoa, we don't have too many of those guys on our roster that are making that shot, dude.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's 2 or 3 maybe that I can think of, and it's probably 1 or 2 guys off the top of my head that would even take that shot with confidence, right? Him and probably AJ Storr.
AJ Storr, yep. Maybe Max. Max has hit some pretty tough mid-range buckets too.
Max, that was the 2 or 3. Max was the 2 or 3. So when Max is going, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to disrespect my boy Money Max, but when Max is going, dude, he's a microwave, bro.
Look at James bringing up one of my crown jewel comments that I always come back to. Good defense, better offense is a thing. The way I phrase it, good offense beats good defense every time.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm looking for with Connor, and I hope that they give him a little bit more run and give him some more opportunities. Let him hunt his shot a little bit more. We need him to start making some shots because we've lost tough games against, now number 2 Purdue. We lost a tough game, Nebraska, the game before. We lost a tough game against Tennessee, and those are all games where we could
Penn State.
Penn State. We could have used a couple more shot makers to get us over the hump. So we're getting closer and closer to March. Obviously, it's February 7th today. So we're getting closer and closer to March. So we're going to need more shot makers, and we're going to need a little bit more spacing for guys like Tyler Wall and AJ Storrs. We get closer to the Big Ten tournament and the big boy tournament, right? So then the next thing I want to talk about is the shot selection. And I'm not trying to dog Chucky. I'm really not. But 1 for 6, 0 for 1 from 3, 6 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. And the reason that I bring up his stats is because I felt like there was opportunities for Chucky to take some mid-range shots where he had guys on his hip, he had guys behind him, chasing him basically after screens, and then he ends up passing the ball out, and then we work our offense and we have to force shots. So now when I'm talking about shot selection, you have to take what the defense gives you. Chucky, if the defense is going to give you a 14-footer with a guy trailing you, shoot the damn ball, dude.
Or put a floater up.
Like, bro, create havoc for yourself. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like there was so many opportunities, and I really should have went back and rewatched this, but in the second half especially, I felt like Chucky was getting downhill pretty well, especially off some dribble handoffs, and he was able to get into the mid-range very easily, and they were kind of just willing to give that up, and he just did not want to shoot it. And it forced us into some bad shots, and it forced us to not look like the Wisconsin Badgers. And I didn't like any of that. I felt like we had a really big opportunity, and I said this to Mike. Tyler was on an airplane, so we wanted to talk separately and not ruin the game in case Tyler wasn't able to watch it.
Yep.
And I said this to Mike, and I was like, dude, we just missed our opportunity to take over this game. Yeah. We had an opportunity after Purdue comes out after half, and they absolutely punch us right in the mouth. But to the Badgers' credit, they kept it close enough. And I felt like the Badgers had an opportunity between like the 8-minute mark and like the 4-minute mark to really, really put a dent in really take over this basketball game, get the lead, get the crowd behind them, almost like what Nebraska did to us. We could have flip-sided that and did it to Purdue, and we missed the mark. And it was because I think guys were just shying away from the moment. Maybe the moment was a little bit too big for Chucky, but I don't want to say that it was because we've seen him make big shots, especially against Purdue. If you guys remember that bang three-pointer a couple years ago, that was fire. Yeah. So you just got to take the shots that the defense gives you. I feel like they were pressing a little bit because they saw the ranking number 2 versus number 6, and just take the shots that they're giving you. Let's get Connor on the floor a little bit more because he will take those shots. I promise you that. If he gets a wide open mid-range, he's pulling that thing.
If he gets anything open at all remotely, he's pulling
it. He's 38 feet away. He's pulling.
Yeah, he's pulling it.
That's the guy that he is, and I think that's a little bit of the attitude that the Badgers need right now. Where a couple of years ago with the Bucks, when they first started to become really dominant, it was a let it fly kind of mantra. And I feel like the Badgers could use a little bit more of that. Not like go crazy and shoot dump, but like taking what they give you and just pull up, man.
Almost not so much like it feels like there's a little bit of rigidity where like the Badgers won a whole bunch of games and they're getting good shots and they're getting good ball movement that they're almost trying to like over create good shots.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to find the perfect shot every possession, and they're passing up good, really good, high-quality shots to try to find the perfect shot. That's kind of how it feels to me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. So the Badgers have not 1, not 2, but 3 games between now and next week. So we had a couple weeks where we only had 1 Badger game to talk about on Wednesday. Now, between this week and next Wednesday, we have 3. So they play tonight at Michigan, Saturday at Rutgers, and then Tuesday versus Ohio State. So that said, Mike, what are your 2 goals for the next 3 games?
So we got 3 golden opportunities here to go 3-0. I don't, without a doubt, I think we should go 3-0, but that's up to us, right? My first goal, we got to play with a sense of urgency in this game. And I'm telling you right now, if we come out slow, I will not be happy in our group chat tonight. Without a doubt, we need to show, after this 2-game losing streak, playing against 2 solid teams, that we're still that team. We're still that top team in the Big Ten, or top 2 or top 3 or whatever. Sure. We got to come out with a sense of urgency and shit on Michigan at their place. Play with some urgency. We got to do it. I think it's the one way to rebound from this last week. Some of the great Badger teams that we've even had, whether it was a 2014 Final Four team or even maybe not the 2015 one, but the 2014 Final Four team went through a similar stretch like this. I'm not going to do direct comparisons exactly, but there is still a lot of hope with this team to go and do really good things. I hope people realize that, but we were just kind of harping on some of those casual fans before. So maybe
the 2020 team had stretches like that too.
Exactly, and they won conference. So come out with a sense of urgency tonight. This is a great opportunity against a team that's struggling, being Michigan. They're going to be in desperate mode. Juwan Howard should be fired, but I'm sure he's going to want to beat us tonight too. But hopefully we can shut them up. So number 2, I'm calling out an individual. I'm calling out Stephen Crowell. I think these last 2 games he's been a little quiet from a scoring perspective and being aggressive. I mean, against Nebraska, he had 1 point. Against Nebraska, he had 8 against Purdue, which is fine. It is what it is. But I want him to get angry and just make a freaking statement. It can be this game. It can be Rutgers, Ohio State. I want to see his ass get angry at somebody. Hell, get a technical foul. I don't care. I want to see him, whether it's dunk over somebody or just I don't know, just have a day. I need him to. That goes along with my urgency comment, I guess, too. But I just want to see him, just take over a game, whether it's one of these next 3.
Yeah, been there.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to go next because you actually said one of the words that is one of my goals, and that is to rebound. So that is on the floor and as a team. So you brought up already the rebounding numbers against Purdue, but just get back to Badger basketball and the winning ways. It's simple. Just rebound. And my second one, I have written pretty big, pretty bold, and that is to just ride Tyler Wall. Holy hell. If you can any sort of way ride the momentum of how well Tyler Wall played against Purdue, do not stop giving him the ball. I strongly agree with you when you said this could be potentially the best game of his career or one of the best games of his career. I strongly agree. When you look offense, defense, passing, footwork, dude, it was all there. So my second goal is to just ride Tyler Wall, play through Tyler Wall, because good things happen. Yeah. And I highlighted that even in the Nebraska game. He was out. Nebraska tied the game. He came in. 2 turnovers were forced. 2 threes were made, both assisted by Tyler Wall. So ride Tyler Wall. Jake, what are your 2 goals for next week?
Well, you actually said one of mine. Get back to Badger basketball, man. Let's run the offense. Let's play some tough defense. Let's go earn ourselves a couple road wins this week against some teams that are not as high in the rankings in the Big Ten. That also whoop our ass in football pretty much every year. So we have to own them in one sport, I would say. Although I think Michigan football is going to be on the downfall here pretty soon.
They're in trouble.
They're losing a lot of good coaches, and coaching matters. It matters a lot in pro sports, but I think it matters a little bit more in college sports because you have to direct these young kids, right? But then my next one is we need more efficiency from the bench, dude. And we've been harping on this for weeks, this entire year basically, and everybody always talks about how deep this Badgers team is, and I agree. We got a lot of talent all over the place, but for the week, the bench scored, this is over 2 games, 21 points. They grabbed 15 rebounds, and they had 3 assists. They shot 8 of 27 on field goals. That is 29%, and they shot 3 of 15 from 3. That is 20%. Gross. We need more efficiency. I'm not saying that we need 40 points from our bench. This isn't the NBA. But I will say that I need you guys to make 50% of your shots. You play 8 minutes.
I'll take literally for college basketball, I'll take 40% on field goals and 30% on threes.
Yeah, but 29% and 20%, that's just gross. That's disgusting.
Yeah, that's not going to do it.
I'm pretty sure my fat ass could get out there and give you 20% from the 3-point line. So
Yeah, that does not Mama the Mia.
it does not Mama the Mia.
Alrighty. So, Mike, we will have you back next week, hopefully discussing a handful of Badgers wins. So we will see you then. We are going to part before we let you go. There is reports/news that Mike Vrabel could be a consultant, some sort of analyst around the Wisconsin Badgers football team, as him and Luke Fickell were previously teammates. So that is some very interesting news. So we will definitely keep an eye on that as that story progresses. But just wanted to throw that out there that we are aware of that and that it is very interesting.
Very. I'm looking forward to that. Even with making some of these new coaching hires recently, I love it. I mean, if you look at the offensive line guy too, that was Blazik, I think his last name is. He's got Midwest ties. He's got Wisconsin ties. He just had a podcast the other day when he was at Winona State, I believe it was. His recruiting territory was northeastern Wisconsin, so he's familiar with like the area where we grew up. So it was a great hire there. As you said, yeah, Vrabel coming into the picture, that's exciting as hell. And even the receivers coach, Guyton, I think, Guyton,
yep,
I forget how you, yeah. He's got one hell of a background too with bringing in some dudes. So, in addition to Vrabel, I'm very excited about the new coaching hires as well.
Yeah, very interesting. Like I said, definitely something we'll keep an eye on as the spring progresses. So, Mike, see you next week, and go Badgers.
Yes, sir. Later, boys.
All right, so I'm going to tease this before we get to it. This is what our special Bucks segment is going to be this week, is to address some misconceptions and tell people to get a grip. So that said, Jake, let's run through these games quick. Let's just start with the Blazers game. Just hit me with your quick takeaways. We're just going to recap these really quickly, just hit some of the main points, and then we're going to get to these misconceptions because people need to earmuffs. People need to chill the fuck out.
Yeah, so people are going to go if you could all invite your friends that you think are casuals that are Bucks fans, that would be fantastic. This is definitely the time to do that. All those people you've been arguing with for the last 2 months that need to understand how basketball works, this would be the time to click the button to bring them in here.
People that are catastrophizing.
So Bucks in Portland, obviously the main thing was Dame back in Portland. The main thing that I want to take away from this is that I think it was a really good reset for Damian Lillard to be around his family, be back in a place where he grew up, and he actually talked about that. So really that's the main thing that I took away from this. I mean, Giannis played really, really good. Chris Middleton had a super efficient game, 9 of 13 from the field, and he had 8 assists as well. Brook Lopez, shot at the end, just going to say, not great. But
let me say this. And I get that he said he thought Brogdon was closer to Dame, but let's not act like Brook Lopez doesn't make shots like that, because he made a 3 that cut the lead to 4.
Yeah.
And he made a 3 that cut the lead to 1. So he made 2 pretty clutch threes also in the fourth quarter of this game.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely worse options on this team and
right.
in general, but when you get a guy like Damian Lillard back in the court where he got famous for Dame time, I mean,
right.
It might be Dame time, you know what I'm saying? So
I'd have to look too to see how many seconds were on the shot clock to see if Brook Lopez could have pulled the ball down and taken an extra second or 2 to look that way again before shooting that. But I don't think it's, if we're talking like a 0 to 10 on shot quality, everybody's acting like it's a 0, and it's much more like a 5.
Yeah. So I just wanted to point this one last thing out. The bench outside of Bobby Portis was awful. I mean, people always want to point out Bobby Portis this, Bobby Portis that. The bench outside of Bobby Portis had 6.7 rebounds, 4 assists. They shot 2 of 11. They were 1 for 7 from 3. Bobby Portis himself had 11-6. He was 5 of 7 and 1 for 2 from 3. So all this, Bobby Portis sucks, get him off the team, trade him. Get over yourself, dude. And there's one specific person I wish that we could invite in here, and I could just rip him a new one.
Let me throw this out there, too, because Bobby Portis, has games like this. He has value, so he's going to be discussed in trade talks.
Yeah, no, 100%.
It's just a fact of matter.
Yeah.
I just want to go overall points in the paint. Portland at 56, the Bucks at 46. That's kind of uncharacteristic of the Bucks. Portland, to their credit, made some crazy shots. Got, I'll say, some lucky bounces, kind of similar to the Purdue game for the Badgers. Just some bounces went their way. It's kind of what it is. Just is what it is. Next, I want to say the ESPN announcer has actually brought it up that Doc Rivers believes Chris Middleton to be one of the smartest players in the NBA.
I agree.
So when people are, and I agree with it as well. I mean, we see him talking to refs all the time, even when he's not in games. Like, he's working stuff out. So again, all this, trade Middleton for whatever you can get for him, just be done. And honestly, my thing overall in this game is I'm really not mad that the Bucks lost. The Bucks just weren't efficient enough, and the Trailblazers, to their credit, were efficient. They lost by 3 on a West Coast road trip game. I'm not going to throw fits about it. They were pretty fundamentally sound. They only missed 5 free throws, 13 points off turnovers, and 8 second chance points allowed to the Trailblazers for 26 fundamental failure points. Not going to complain about that at all.
Yeah.
So just need to up the efficiency a little.
Agreed.
All right. Bucks and Mavericks. The W on the week, definitely one that produced some interesting takeaways, but we need to mention no Brook Lopez. Him and his wife did have their baby now, so congrats to the Lopezes. But Jake, what's up to you overall?
We shot 56% from the field, damn near 57%, 56.8%. So that's awesome.
Yep.
64-40 in points in the paint. I mean, that's absolutely tremendous. That is the Bucks that we know.
That does Mama the Mia.
100% the Mama the Mia. Giannis 48, 6 and 10. Dame with 33 and 8. I mean, they combined for 78 points. I mean, that's ridiculous. That is what we are, we envisioned when we seen the ESPN ticker go across our phone and say that the Bucks traded for Damian Lillard, right? The Woj mom. I mean, that was what we envisioned, right? Standing up for Giannis goes a long way. Yeah, I agree.
Oh, absolutely.
We'll get into that one. That one's next game here. Man, I wasn't even going to touch that, but your dad brought it up now. Now I'm pissed off about it again. Damn it. I just want to say that the 15-0 run at the end of the second quarter really created a lot of momentum for the Bucks when they were down 20 to go on a 15-0 run in like a 2-minute span. Really sparked this team. And it was defense and the offense, and it was the lineup with Giannis at the center position playing small ball. Jay Crowder is starting to get his legs under him a little bit more.
Yep.
So we're able to do that. We have the versatility now. So we haven't really seen that a lot this year. And that's the thing that's going to be scary about this team is they're finally going to be at home now. So they're going to get to sleep in their own bed. They're going to be around their families, kind of like a reset for Dame going to Portland. That's going to be for the rest of the team now. And they're going to get the rest that they need, be around their trainers, go to the facility. I mean, Doc's going to be able to implement a lot of stuff. I mean, we're going to get into some ins and outs here in a second, but Giannis played tremendous. Dame played tremendous. Bobby had a double-double, even though he didn't shoot very good. I mean, can't really complain about this game, but I guess if you're Luka, you'll find a way.
You like I'm going to talk about Luka a little bit because the Mavericks at times were trying to target Damian Lillard with Luka. Luka shot 2 for 7 from the field and guarded by Dame.
Oof.
So it's like he felt like he was being guarded by a guy who's not good defensively. So in my mind, it made Luka feel like I need to score on this guy because he's not good on defense, which could potentially lure him into some bad shots.
Yeah.
That said, Chris Middleton was the primary defender on Luka, which I think is very interesting, and I think he did a pretty good job. Luka was 4 for 8 from the field, which is 50%. However, he was 0 for 4 from the three-point line. So Luka had 8 points, 2 assists, and 1 turnover when guarded by Chris Middleton for over 7 minutes of game time.
I said last week that the legs are getting back, and the two-way player in Chris Middleton is starting to arrive again.
And let me throw this out there because Middleton kind of ran out of gas from the field. He was working really hard to get through screens and over screens while guarding Luka. So he was working his ass off. And I'll say this, and we'll talk about this too when we get into some other stuff, but we could see the transition defense improve in this game. And also with Luka, let's just talk Luka and coaching staffs. One of the biggest gripes that we had during the Budenholzer era and the brief Griffin era was adjustments. Luka had 40 points. Yes. 26 of them were in the first half. The second half, I'm going to go ahead and give Doc Rivers a whole scoop of credit for the adjustments that he made, with the Bucks throwing 2 defenders at him as soon as he crossed half court, forcing the ball out of his hands. Ooh, nothing's changed. Bullshit, nothing has changed.
Right.
You can literally see it in the games.
Yeah.
We're going to get to that in a minute as well. Now, I'm going to throw this out there also as a precursor to something we're going to talk about in last night's game. People complaining that Giannis is dirty because he dove for a loose ball and then Luka landed on his own ankle is dumb. It's just dumb. People just got to let stuff go. So let me say the Bucks did out-assist the Mavericks 34-22, which is really good. That to me says that the Bucks were forcing the Mavericks to play a lot of isolation ball, which generally isn't great when we've broken down tons of plays of great ball movement and the great shots have become out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you brought up Chris Middleton. He had some bad bounces on some of his shots, and like I said, I think he kind of ran out of gas a little bit. But 8 assists, only 2 turnovers. So the next time Chris Middleton has a 4 turnover game, people are going to be like, oh, Middleton, and always has all these turnovers. But they're not going to talk about the game where he has 8 assists and only 2 turnovers. So I will be that person to call that out.
That's right.
Let's talk Bucks and Jazz. Let's throw it to you from this one.
First of all, everybody needs to calm the fuck down. We're on the second half of a back-to-back in Utah.
Yeah.
A few things. The Bucks suck in Utah. I can't explain it. It's just one of those things. You know, we did the whole thing with the Brewers. Baseball, right? It is sports. I don't.
You can go back to 2001, and we've won in Utah twice.
I literally don't have an explanation for it. It's so stupid. But
the only thing I can think of is the altitude. That's the only thing I got.
It's just one of those things, dude. So, sucking in Utah and on a second half of a back-to-back.
Yep.
Where in Dallas, Giannis played 40 minutes. Chris Middleton didn't play in the Jazz game, but he played 38 minutes. Dame played 38 minutes. Beasley played 33 minutes, and Bobby played 31 minutes in Dallas. Then less than 24 hours later, you have to go to Utah and play a team that likes to get up and down and shoot lots of threes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is tough.
That's
and
tough.
they controlled this game for a wide margin. They had complete control of this game. And then the legs died. That's really what I think. I think the legs just died in the fourth quarter. The Jazz got their way. I don't know what the refs were looking at during, when Giannis is getting elbowed and he's talking shit after he elbows Giannis. I mean, what are we looking at here, dude? And
immaturity is what I was looking at.
I agree. And I agree with your dad that Beasley standing up for Giannis, and he did it in a great way. He didn't swing, he didn't bump him. He just kind of gave him a, yo, dog, chill out, dog. You can't be hitting our guy like that,
Yeah. James said the battle of attrition. Be serious.
Man,
it do be serious.
Seriously, you would have thought the freaking sky was falling after that game, James. It was insane. The people that have zero perspective of how hard it is to play an NBA game and win on the road in general, because like Tyler was explaining before, that's still an NBA team.
Yeah.
The Jazz, who did they just beat last night? Oh, the Thunder. They beat the Thunder.
No, that was the Bulls.
Nuh-uh.
The Bulls beat the Thunder last night. It wasn't the Jazz.
No, it was the Wolves. The Bulls beat the Wolves.
Oh, it was the Bulls beat the Wolves. Yep, you're right.
And the Thunder lost a fourth quarter lead to the Jazz in Utah.
Yep.
So it's
Thunder's trash. They're not contenders. They're not for real. Pretenders, frauds.
So it's not like they're awful. And they were pretty good last year. They got some good players. They have all-star players. They have a lot of talent on that team. So for the Bucks to lose a second half of the back-to-back. Now, excuse me, I will say the way that they lost it kind of sucked. That was hard to watch. But again, when you take a step back, with perspective and understand what these guys are going through physically, makes it a little bit more understandable. So that's all I got.
So let me throw this out there. The fourth quarter, to your point, was weird. Not something that's happened often, I would say. The Jazz played their starters the entire fourth quarter. All 12 minutes, all 5 of them. Kind of a weird situation. The Jazz definitely out-rebounded the Bucks. The Bucks just didn't have a strong paint presence. So you look at the points in the paint, the Jazz were plus 20 in points in the paint. And we already mentioned the long-standing struggles in Utah. We talked about that already. And we're going to talk about bench points as well, so I'm not going to harp on it here because we're going to talk about that in our special segment that we're doing today. You already mentioned the foul calls besides the super obvious hacks. Unfortunately, that was a trend that continued last night. But we need to chill on people complaining about Doc not playing Marjan and Ajax enough. He's learning the rotations of the players that obviously are going to play the bigger minutes. And he has outwardly said, literally in the first time he wore Bucks attire, that we're going to need one or both of them to play a role to contribute to the team to be successful. So it's not like Doc Rivers doesn't know they are there. He's going to work from the top down, and he's going to implement more things. You got to wait longer than 5 fucking games before we're just throwing all of this blind whining out there. So that said, let's talk about last night's game. So last night's game, Pat started for Dame. Chris Middleton unfortunately got injured after 8 minutes. Now, let me say this, because I just mentioned Giannis is not dirty for diving for a loose ball and Luka landing on his own ankle. Here we go. We're going to do the flip side of the coin. We're not going to call Kevin Durant dirty for his foot getting underneath Chris Middleton's ankle. KD is not dirty for that. He was not trying to do that. It should not be viewed as that case.
Yeah, that was just KD trying to close out, and his foot ended up underneath Chris. I don't think that he meant to roll his ankle.
Right.
But it is what it is, man.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. That's why they made it a flagrant foul. So the guys are going to be more aware of it in the future. It's still going to happen, though.
That's the Zaza Pachulia play.
Right. Well, the intent on that one could be measured differently.
Yeah. But that's why it became a flagrant, because of Zaza Pachulia.
Right. That's why they made it a flagrant. Okay. So James said, I think people forget that humans are moving on the court and things happen incidentally. And that's true. And you can look where people's eyes are when those things happen. That tells you their intent.
Hold on. They're not just humans. These guys are huge. Specifically when you're talking about Giannis and Kevin Durant, those guys are 7 feet tall. Like James, and I don't know how tall you are in real life. I've never met you in real life. When you see a guy that's like 6'6", is that huge for you? Now imagine a guy much bigger than that. And his shoulders are wider. And they got muscles out to here. And their hands are 1.5 feet long. I mean, these guys are huge, dude. Yeah. And if you've ever seen the photo of Kevin Durant when he's on the Nets, you're 5'8". So 6'6" would be gigantic. Now imagine a 7-footer. And the craziest thing to me, this has always been crazy to me. This is a little random, but you see the court, right, on the TV, and you're like, man, that thing looks pretty big, man. And you're like, man, that's the same size court you always play on. You're like, that's wild that they fit all those 7-footers on there, bro.
Yeah. And I'm trying to have court vision around that.
And Luka's 6'7", so it's not like that was a small guy, wrestling with Giannis on the floor there. So these guys are fucking huge, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why it's a rule, like we said. And that's why it's a rule. That's why it's a flagrant foul, is to make guys more aware of it. And we still, being aware of the rule doesn't mean people are going to break it, like aren't going to break it. And I'm going to say I still don't think it was intentional.
Hold on,
just like any personal foul can be viewed that way. The guys know it's a rule, but it's still going to happen.
I'm going to respond to my dad. Here's the flip side to that, Dad, is if KD doesn't contest that, then all the people that watch basketball in the 80s and 90s are going to be like, there's no defense in today's NBA. But now, because he contested it, hey, Durant muscles look pretty big on that dunk. I won't lie. He was flexing a little bit.
They're just spread out because he's so long.
but he isn't very muscular. But because he contested it and his foot ended up where it ended up, and his foot is like the size of a freaking small boat, do a flyby, everybody gets mad at Pat Connaughton.
Yeah.
And Dad, you watch Tyler and I play high school basketball. How many times have you heard us say, Herzog, no flybys?
Well, and the other thing with that is, and if you're jumping out at a shot like that, doing the flyby, that just leaves your rest of your team to play 5-on-4. If that turns into a pump fake, you are literally playing 5-on-4 with your other guy standing at half court running back into the play. So it shouldn't be the flyby. It should just be a high hand closeout instead of jumping at the shooter, is what I'll say.
It's kind of a lose-lose situation, honestly, if you really think about it.
Right. That's what offenses are supposed to do. They're supposed to put defenses in lose-lose situations.
It sucks that it happened to us, and it sucks that it happened to Chris when he was finally starting to get his legs under him.
Right.
But,
Kevin Durant isn't dirty for it.
I don't think he is.
The last thing that I want to say on last night's game is I want to give Cam Payne some credit. That dude was working hard on offense and defense last night.
Yeah, he was.
Flyby is better than a flagrant, and again, you're not the flagrant. And I get, yes, the flyby is better than the flagrant, but when you're doing the contested shot, obviously you're not planning on him landing on your foot.
Right.
So I mean, they're not equally likely to happen.
Yeah.
It's kind of a chance thing when a guy lands on somebody else's foot. All right. Anything you want to say on the Bucks and Suns game before we get into these misconceptions?
Giannis was carrying, and Giannis had at least 2 dunks better than the Kevin Durant dunk, but only the Kevin Durant dunk is surfacing around the internet. So
shocking.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's probably because Giannis dunked on Drew Eubanks and Bull, and Durant dunked on Giannis. That's probably why, to be honest.
Well, and I'll say this: people keep sharing the video of who the heck was it? Nurkic covering Giannis, and he turns around and Giannis misses a 3-pointer. But they won't show the one where he did that and Giannis made the 3-pointer, or they won't show the plays where Giannis drove right past Nurkic and scored on him very easily. So this is where we talk about where people creating all these false narratives, and it's just bullshit, man. Honestly.
We've talked about this because, we've talked about this, I'll say, honestly, more often with the Packers than anything, but is when people want to try to say something, they will completely ignore any evidence to the contrary. And what we've said, and what I personally believe about that, is that it's intellectually dishonest. And I'll use Josiah DeGuara as an example, is people are like, oh, why are we keeping him? Just cut him. And people will use like the blocked field goal as an example of why he should be cut, or the one block where he was just trying to dive into somebody as an example of why he should be cut. But then they will completely ignore any time that he makes good blocks or blocks that spring guys for big gains, things like that. So when it comes to making claims on things, you have to at least be willing to acknowledge things that go the opposite way. If you're trying to push this narrative, it doesn't take but a second to just say, now I will say on this play, he did well on the thing that I'm saying he's not doing well at. It's not hard. James said, if my critics saw me walking over the Thames, they'd say it was because I couldn't swim. And that's the thing, is people are going to find a reason to discredit what you're saying no matter what. That said, we're going to discredit a bunch of things.
Yeah.
But these are misconceptions. And here we go again to the mainstream media aspect of it with sports, is Doc Rivers' record with the Bucks. He took over on day 1 of a 5-game West Coast road trip. And right away, the main news outlets are, the Bucks are 1-4 since hiring Doc Rivers, and ignoring all context involved. And obviously that gets shared and people see it because, those outlets, say like Bleacher Report or, whatever outlet it might be, have large followings. Mm-hmm. And because they have large followings, people see their stuff more often. And they'll just run with it because it's a graphic that looks funny and ignore all context. So we are here to provide that context. So the first misconception we're going to start with is Doc Rivers' record since taking over for the Bucks. So, Jake, what are you feeling? What are you feeling on this misconception?
All right, so let's go game by game, right? The West Coast road trip. We just fired our coach, so that's a transition. We have an interim coach. That's another transition.
True.
And now you're on your third coach within 2 weeks.
Less.
And you're on a 5-game, 10-day West Coast road trip.
Yep.
You want to talk about things that are difficult to deal with. So, the first loss against Denver, they're legitimately the defending champions.
Yep.
I don't need to say anything else.
They lost by what, 6?
Defending champs. Like, what? You're mad about that, bro? Then we go to Portland, right? That was an emotional game for Damian Lillard, man. And we gave our thoughts on that. And in my opinion, if there was one other game that we could have won, it was the Portland game. But I don't think the Bucks played very well. Then you go to Dallas.
Like I said.
You go to Dallas. Great come from behind W.
Awesome. That was a great game.
Good stuff, right? Then, like I said, you play a back-to-back in Utah in a place where we've always struggled. And by the way, I looked it up. The Bucks, all games in Utah, have won there 19 times. Yeah.
Huh, cool.
Which, in a weird way, is going to be more wins than the Pistons get this year. So, had to throw that out there. So then you get to the Phoenix game. We're missing 3 of our 5 starters.
Yeah.
I mean, we started the game missing 2 of them. We missed Brook for a lot of games. Damian Lillard gets banged up in Utah with a little mini poster at the end of the game. Then Chris Middleton goes out 8 minutes into the game.
Yep.
I mean, what are we complaining about? I mean, Denver, good. Portland, they're upstart. So Dallas should be better than they are. Utah, they're about what their record is, but they're really good at home, and the Bucks suck there. And then Phoenix. They have 3 superstar offensive players. I'm not going to say superstar players, but on the offensive end of the floor, they're superstars. Bradley Beal and Devin Booker are not the greatest on defense. But, bro, this is a tough stretch to come into. Now, the Bucks are about to start like a homestand. They're going to get home. They're gonna do their thing. Like I am going to watch closely to the next couple weeks. By the way, my favorite part about all this is, no, I don't enjoy losing, but the team is definitely getting better, and we have a different section for that as well. But all the casuals are coming out in waves right now, dude. And it honestly is just, it's really hard. It's like when you're playing zombies on COD, right? Like, okay, 1 or 2, take them down, right? All of a sudden, you have 15 coming at you, bro. Like, things start getting a little hectic, man. I'm sorry. That's the scenario I put it on your head. But think about it like that, though, dude. You're arguing with one casual. Then you have another.
Oh, my God. The casuals are COD zombies, bro. Oh, my God.
I mean, they probably have the same brain capacity. But
probably make the same noises, too.
Probably. But, I mean, 2 of them, you're like, all right. I could deal with a double team. I've scored on a double team before in my life. Oh, you got 3, 4 more coming. It's kind of bad, bro.
Oh, shit. James said, not going to defend Doc, although I do like the guy, but being a coach isn't as easy as couch coaches think it is. A lot of things aren't. It's like playing chess without really having control of your pieces. And this is the thing. They've had literally 1 actual practice.
Yep.
1.
Yep.
Chris talked about it in some of his interviews where he's saying they're basically trying to have a mini training camp in the middle of a season.
That's tough.
That's super tough. The players have never done anything like that. The coach has never done like that. The staff has never done things like that.
Right.
So we're in some new ground here. And I know when this first happened that Adrian Griffin was fired, that when Doc Rivers takes over, we were going to give it probably, 2 weeks, I think is what I said. Yeah. I was going to give it at least 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it's been 1 week.
Yep.
So need to relax on that. And now we've already touched on this a little bit with we talked about the Badgers and with the Bucks. Stop saying they lost to XYZ, so they're not going anywhere. We need to stop doing that. Case in point, the Thunder losing to the Jazz that the Bucks just lost to, and the Timberwolves losing to the Bulls. Anybody can beat anybody because these are all professional basketball players.
Yep.
So that's that. James said at the end of the day, he brought us the title. I can't hate him. That's fair. Okay. Misconception number 2. Jake, I'm going to let you start on this one because I feel a little bit more strongly about it. But after the Suns game and Chris Middleton rolling his ankle, calling Chris Middleton injury prone. Where do you come down on this misconception?
All right. Let me tighten the hat. Okay, so this is the hat that says champions, by the way. So, did you motherfuckers forget who you're talking about? This man averaged 24.6 rebounds and 5 assists in the NBA Finals. He scored 40 in the finals. Big time buckets. Did you forget who you're talking about? Now, the injury sucked, and every injury is different. And everybody's body reacts to it differently. You know, just look at the David Bakhtiari situation, man. I mean, that guy's body's rejecting a lot of stuff. Oh, God, dude. James, I couldn't even imagine, dude. The Celtics fans are insufferable the way it is. I can't imagine all the whining that goes on in those groups. But calling Chris Middleton injury prone when he literally landed on somebody's foot is the second dumbest thing I've heard in the last 24 hours. And everybody is so lucky that I was in a football debate last night because otherwise it'd be the dumbest by far.
Dude, people better hope that I don't see somebody calling Chris Middleton injury prone for landing on Kevin Durant's foot.
I literally, if it wasn't for somebody saying they got their football opinions from people at the casino, this would be the dumbest thing. And yes, that is real.
Somebody said that.
I showed Tyler the proof.
I've seen the receipts.
That is the second dumbest thing I've seen. He landed on somebody's foot. What do you want him to do? Like magically start floating and be like, oh, nope, there's a foot there. Let me put my foot over here. Like,
There's literally no control involved in that.
What are we doing here? So
and that can happen to literally anybody.
I agree.
James said, first off, I hate the term injury prone, but also when I hear that and people are in freak accidents, I'm just done. And that's where we're at.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to Chris Middleton. That was a freak accident. That was a bang. Chris Middleton hit a 3 earlier in the game.
Yep.
I mean, this was still pretty early. But he already hit a 3 and a mid-range. So KD's like, man, I'm not letting this guy heat up. I've seen this before. So he tries to do a hard closeout, and he lands on his foot. It is what it is. It sucks.
Yeah. Could happen to anybody.
Exactly. Now, I'm going to give the floor to you because I feel like you're about to cook right now.
I said what I said. I swear, if I see one person call Chris Middleton injury prone when they announce that he's going to miss 2 weeks with an ankle sprain, because that's where I'm feeling like there's nothing. The X-rays were negative, so he doesn't have anything broken or torn or anything. So it's going to be an ankle sprain. So I'm going to say he's probably going to miss like 10 days to 2 weeks. I swear to God, when that announcement comes out that Chris Middleton is going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks or something like that, and people are like, oh, we should have traded him when we had the chance because he's injury prone, I will lose my shit. I promise you. Like there's times where like I'm dealing with people that are dumb, and I show some restraint and I try to be snarky the nice way. If I see people calling Chris Middleton injury prone for landing on Kevin Durant's foot, something he had literally no control over, I am going to lose it, and I will be mean. Not even going to hesitate. I'll be mean to people because you deserve it if you're going to say that Chris Middleton is injury prone for landing on somebody else's foot.
Right.
That is just pure, like 100% organic stupidity.
It's like people getting offended when they say something stupid and you call them stupid. Like, well, what was I going to call you smart?
No, you're stupid and you should be told so. Exactly. So that you stop doing stupid shit like saying Chris Middleton's injury prone for landing on Kevin Durant's foot. Something he had no control over.
Agreed.
All right. So you wanted to bring this third one up. It's not an announcer's jinx. Like I said, it can happen to anybody. And he's looked great in other games and hasn't gotten hurt. So I don't know that I'm going to go as far as to call it a jinx. Anyways, the third misconception, this one you wanted to talk about. Oh, sorry. The fourth one is the one you wanted to talk about. This one we came up with together. The quote-unquote, nothing has changed since Doc River has taken over.
All right. I'm going to cook. Are you ready? Here we go.
Go for it.
Numbers. Oh, and just wait till the game is washed, dude. I have so many things to debunk.
Yeah, that's the next one. I almost got ahead of myself.
Sorry, I'm so sick and tired of people saying that too. So This is according to Clean the Glass on Twitter, right? They put the stats on there.
Yeah, it's a good site.
It is. It's great. They have a lot of really, really good stuff on there, and all these
Marcus Johnson references it all the time.
A lot of casuals could learn some things from that. So through January 23rd, defensive rating was 21st in the league at 117.8. Turnover percentage was 30th at 11.4. And defensive rebound percentage was 18th at 73.2%. Now, since 124, defensive rating 10th. Top 10 defensive rating, 115.1.
That'll play.
Turnover percentage, 12th. Up from 30th to 12th at 13.5%. Defensive rebound percentage went up literally 3%, and then went from 18th to 7th at 76%.
Hell yeah.
They've also jumped from 30th to 7th in percent of plays run against their defense in transition. So I have a couple more numbers for you. So opponent points off turnovers. The Bucks are now 7th in the NBA at 12.6. Opponent second chance points. The Bucks are 10th at 11.8. Some of these games are without Brook Lopez.
Those are the fundamental failures right there. Those two. That's 2 out of the 3.
Opponent fast break points. The Bucks are 4th since Doc took over, 12.2. And points in the paint. I know the Bucks were 25th in this one, and they're up to number 12.
So they've cut it in half, essentially.
They've cut it in half, and that's with 3 games without Brook points in the paint. We don't even know how Doc's really going to utilize Brook Lopez on defense.
I'm actually really excited to see that.
So the fact that you sit there and say that nothing has changed really sits the wrong way with me, because if you're watching these games, if you watch these games in November and December, and then you watch these games, in mid-January, and you're watching them now at the start of February, there's no way you can tell me that nothing has changed. The defense and the effort is there.
The case in point is the Dallas game. And to your point, you mentioned it without Brook Lopez. Seriously, If you think nothing has changed, watch the Dallas game. Just rewatch the game from Saturday. The Bucks, their defense is completely different. Yeah. You can see the transition defense is different, and you can see the way that they double team superstar ball handlers like Luka Doncic, ball dominant players. It's different. And to the point, it's going to work a little bit differently against Phoenix because, like you said, they have 3 guys who are superstars on offense, whereas Dallas is kind of built more on playing around Luka and Kyrie. Mm-hmm. So when the Bucks kind of took Luka away from Dallas, they struggled a little bit, and the Bucks were able to come back from a huge deficit. So, like I said, case in point, if you think nothing has changed, just rewatch the Dallas game.
Yeah, and I remember when we had our intervention probably 2-3 weeks ago now at this point. The one thing that we kept bringing up about stopping the transition, because transition defense was a problem for the last couple of years, we both said one simple little phrase: get your ass back on defense. Yep. And you know what? I bet you Doc said that, but with a lot more words, and he was much louder.
Okay. So let's talk number 4. Number 4 is people saying that Damian Lillard is washed.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
I want to know your thoughts. I want to let you go on this one because I think you're going to have more to say, and I have just one question to ask. That is some introspection. So
Dame is washed, right? Well, if Dame is washed, why are the Bucks now 0-4 when he's not in the lineup? Why are the Bucks 13-1 when Dame scores at least 30 points?
Maybe he's got 30 14 times this year?
Yeah. 13-1 when he scores at least 30.
That snuck up on me a little bit. Wow.
The Bucks are 10-14 when Damian scores less than 25 points. So when he scores less than 25, the Bucks are an under 500 team. They need this man to score. They are 23-3 when he hits 25. He literally says to score 25, and we're elite.
Huh. Okay.
That's nuts.
So
one other thing I'm going to bring up here. The Bucks, without Damian Lillard, what do you think their points per game average is? Not very good, by the way. 108. They average 108 points per game without Dame on the floor. With Damian Lillard on the floor, the offense averages 124.
Nice.
They go they go from 108 to 124 just from having him on the floor. And then you've heard the numbers. If he scores 30, we're 13-1. You basically lost as the other team. The one loss was against the Knicks on Christmas Day, I believe.
Okay.
And the Bucks defense gave up 129 points that day.
Yeah.
So you're not going to win many games giving up 129, right? And obviously, Horst knew that. A lot of Bucks fans knew that, which is why we made the change in the coaching staff, right?
Right.
So we just gave you all the defensive stats and how the defense is improving. Now, if we could just figure out how to get Dame and Giannis to just – and I said it before. People were complaining that Doc was going to spam the pick and roll with Dame and Giannis. Is that really a bad thing?
We said that. Is that a bad thing?
Is that
they're
really
both,
a bad thing?
They're both among the best in the league at doing those respective roles. Why are we complaining that they're going to do that more?
And then on top of that, you create wide open shots for Malik Beasley, who's shooting damn near 50% from the corner on threes.
And Chris Middleton.
Really a bad thing? Come on.
And Jay Crowder. And Bobby Portis. And Brook Lopez.
Right. If they continue this effort on defense and they rebound and they get back on defense and they do what they're supposed to do on that end, and we spam the pick and roll with Dame and Giannis on the other end, and we're averaging 124 points per game.
Yeah, splash moment.
We're winning a lot of games.
Yeah.
Point blank, period.
And let me say this, is if you don't think that that's possible or you think it's going to take a lot of time, which we think it's going to take some time, just turn your TV off for a month.
Yeah.
Just leave everybody else who actually wants to watch the team grow and improve incrementally. Leave them alone instead of doing all this, oh, we're not going anywhere because we lost 4 out of 5 games on a West Coast road trip after a new coaching staff and a bunch of guys missing games.
It almost makes you feel like the Packers when the Packers were 2-5 and everybody was like, they suck. Dude, you're gonna get number
one. This team is, this guy's not the guy. This team's not going anywhere. Whatever.
We're gonna draft a quarterback. It's like, okay, then just don't watch the rest of the year because I really don't want to listen to you fucking cry for the next 2 months, dude.
Yeah. So, that's what I've been telling people. Just turn your TV off until April if you don't want to actually watch the team incrementally improve because they're already improving.
Yes, they are.
Even though the record hasn't shown it yet. The team is improving, and the players feel that way. Like, Giannis has literally talked about it, that the team feels different.
Yeah.
And my thing is if you're going to continue to talk shit about players, just ask yourself this question. Do you think that saying shit like that is going to make other superstars want to come to Milwaukee?
We've had this discussion before.
When it comes to being a small market city, and even though the Bucks are currently good, and being good attracts talent, there are going to be times where the Bucks are bad. They could just be bad. They could be in the middle. They could be teetering on, playoff team versus contention. And then you get into things like intangibles.
Mm-hmm.
Weather. Wisconsin, not great during basketball season.
No.
You get into things like, say, nightlife, for example. Milwaukee, sure, there's some. Compared to LA or Miami, not a contest.
Not even close.
And even if you get into some where, they're similar, let's say Dallas, for example. You think somebody would rather be in Wisconsin than in Dallas, Texas in February, in January? We need to, as a small market, we need to have intangibles. And I will die on this hill because it's proven with the Packers that people are the number one intangible when it comes to things like sport free agent decisions. Obviously, money is a factor. But when you get into things where there's sports where teams have salary caps, besides baseball, which is just a totally different situation, which we'll talk about in a future episode. But if we're talking basketball or football, and two teams can offer you the same thing, and one team has a reputation of their fan base talking shit about their players when they don't play well, and the other team has a reputation of lifting their players up when they're not playing well, which one do you think they're going to choose?
It's true.
People are easily the biggest intangible. Giannis to this day, even though that dude is probably worth $1 billion at this point, will still talk about the people. He talks about he can go to the Wisconsin State Fair and people will let him be a person.
Yeah.
People matter. So if you're going to be shitty people, why would anybody want to come here? And let me tell you, if this ever happens in, say, 2035, when somebody chooses, say, Philadelphia or LA or Miami over a Milwaukee team and they say it's because the people are shittier here, you deserve that. If that's how you're going to act and carry yourself. That is why we care at Wisco Fanatics, why we care so strongly about the representation of our fan bases, because that shit is fucking important.
Well, and then on top of that, dude, like, we've had this discussion too, and we like to incorporate sports life with real life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't be a piece of shit. I mean, I'm just gonna be real blunt about it, man. I mean, you got people in all walks of life going through crazy stuff, man. Like, I can go to work and there's people that I don't know what they're going through, right? But at the end of the day, I'm just going to be nice to them. I'm going to treat them with the respect that they deserve because they're a goddamn person.
Yep.
And that's exactly how we should treat these athletes, man. They're still people.
Yep.
You know, and we always talk about Giannis. That's somebody's dad. That's somebody's brother. Like, you know, that's somebody's son. I mean, don't forget about
the example we've come back to when it comes to athletes or people is Keston Hiura.
Yeah.
When people were dogging Keston Hiura for the entire summer of 2021 while his mom was dealing with cancer. Like, fuck's sake. Like, can we just actually be people? Sure. And the bottom line is sports are entertainment.
Exactly. You know, and
so seriously, being a good person costs nothing.
Seriously, just be good people. Let's treat people with respect. And at the end of the day, this is entertainment, okay? Yeah. So let's just remember that when you're turning on your TV, oh, God, and I have a absolute zero tolerance, less than zero if it was possible, with college kids. I swear to God, dude, seriously, nothing pisses me off more than when I see a bunch of people ragging these college kids. Because my son's going to be one of those one day.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be really hard for me to hold back online if I see somebody talk shit about my son. Because I know how hard he works and how badly he wants it.
Oh, yeah. And that's on top of having a full school workload as well.
So let's just not talk shit about athletes. Let's just be people. And I swear to God, I go crazy on the Badger page and people talk shit about the college kids. We're not doing that. These kids are like 18, 19, 20 years old.
Yeah.
And if you're talking like that at 48, I can promise you sucked ass at 20. Sorry.
But let's leave it at this on this one is, like I said, when guys are struggling, lift them up instead of throwing rocks at them.
Agreed.
All right. Last misconception that we're going to talk about is the bench. Now, this one, man, you don't even have to do any research for this one. No. You could just think about the games.
Yeah.
What's up, Tim? The bench. Let's talk about the bench. So, 2 out of the 5 games, the bench have filled starters' roles.
Yeah.
And even more so when you get into last night when Damian Lillard's not playing and Brook Lopez isn't playing, so you're already down 2, and then you lose a third one. Yeah, you don't say that the bench scoring is going to be down a little when you got 3 bench guys filling in for 3 starter roles. Like, how? Oh my God! How do you not realize that? Yeah. Going all the way back to Dallas when Brook Lopez was out, sure, Brook Lopez isn't dropping 20 or 30 regularly, but he averages like 14 points.
And a lot of shot contests. You know, I mean,
I'm talking strictly just scoring.
Okay.
Because you take Bobby Portis, who's averaging like 10 to 12 points, and then he has to move into Brook Lopez's role. So that's 12 points moving out of your starting rotation, off of your bench, into your starting lineup. So yeah, your bench is losing points per game because they are filling starters' roles. I can't believe that this has to be explained.
It's wild, honestly. It's wild, dude.
What's up, Beard Wisconsin? Good looking out. They're sending us. They're sending some goodies, so I'm interested to see what that looks like. But My other thing on the bench, and we talked, just said, you can't expect bench players to fill starters' roles and then the bench scoring to not change. Like, what sense does that make?
Mm-hmm.
And my other thing is, there is no way in hell you can realistically expect any basketball team, for that matter, to be elite 3 deep at any position.
Right.
And then last question that I'm going to pose for people who are whining about the bench while starters are missing. When we get to playoff time, how deep do you think the playoff rotation is going to go?
Probably 8.
Probably 8.
That's usually what it is. It's usually 8 and sometimes 9 if you're like
maybe 9.
If you're a super deep team.
Yeah. And we're talking about complaining about our 10, 11, 12 bench players because Bobby has been forced into a major role, Jay Crowder has been forced into a more major role, and Pat Connaughton has been forced into a more major role.
Right.
So those are your 3. That's your 8.
Yeah.
So we are now complaining about 9, 10, 11, 12 players in the rotation.
Yeah, the Cams, the AJ Greens, the Ajax, the Marjans. I mean,
Robin Lopez. I'll let you give your point on the bench, and then we're going to answer Steve's question.
Okay. So I went from a different angle, so I appreciate the angle that you came from. But when you're just thinking about the bench and you're thinking about, if you put your GM hat on, which I know it doesn't fit some of you because you have air in your head and it kind of deflates it. But, man, I'm being mean today. I'm so sorry.
Some people have the dunce cap in the way, so there's that.
I'm so sorry.
I'll take a step further.
Just call it like I see it, man. But you got Bobby Portis. The guy is 6'10". He can play tough down low. He can spread the floor. I mean, those guys won't just grow on trees, okay?
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, he's the mayor of Milwaukee, and he's the president of Milwaukee, so of the United States. So those guys don't just grow on trees, so let's not just give them away for nothing, okay? You get Pat Connaughton. Hustle player, spot-up shooter. Showed that he had some versatility last night by playing some
dog.
So, yeah, dog. And then what I'm going to say about Pat and Bobby, these guys are champions.
Yep.
Don't you ever disrespect the heart of a champion. Better watch your damn mouth when you talk about my boys like that. I love Pat and I love Bobby. And if they get traded today, I'm going to be really sad, man, because a part of that championship team for 2021 is going to be gone forever.
Yep.
And,
or at least for the rest of the year.
At least for the rest of the year. And I love them. I love them a lot, man. I appreciate everything that they've done. And I didn't even say hustle player for Bobby, but that's what he is, right? He's a hard worker.
Mm-hmm.
Those are those people.
Those are 2 guys who literally will and literally have bled for the team.
100%. You get to Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder is a versatile defender.
Dog.
He allows us to play a lot of different lineups. He could be a spot-up shooter. He could play tough down low. He's obviously a very good high IQ basketball player with his passing and his extra passes. So people don't really appreciate that about Jay Crowder. But if you watch, you notice that he's a good player. So like you said, those are your top 3. You're not sitting too bad if that's your top 3 on the championship roster. You get to
right Cam. Now they're playing 3-4-5 instead of 6-7-8.
Exactly. Now you get to Cam. Cam's been playing a little feisty the last couple of days, right? And when we came
playing like a guy who knows he might get traded, to be honest with you.
Exactly. When we came into the season, the thing that I liked about him is that he plays a little bit quicker, so he can kind of push the pace a little bit more, get us in the offense. And he got away from that for a while, but now he's recently starting to get back into it, and I think it's making him play better. He plays better when he speeds up.
That's fair.
So he's got to continue that, and he's got to continue that confidence, and he's got to make his 3-pointers, especially the wide open ones when people are doubling on Giannis and you're wide open in the corner. Those are the ones you got to cash. And then every once in a while, he shoots a 3 with a guy on him, and he makes it. And I'm just like, you make no sense. You get to AJ Green, right? This is a very interesting guy. He's got an NBA body. He can pull up from anywhere. Very, very good spot-up shooter. If he at some point figures out how to attack the rim off the dribble and finish, he's going to be a serious role player.
He would be Austin Reeves.
He would be a serious role player. Maybe starter like Austin Reeves. I like that. I didn't think about that. You get the guys like Andre Jackson Jr. That guy's so wet behind the ears, dude. It's not even funny. I mean, everybody wants to complain. Yeah, Marjan too. Everybody wants to complain about where this Bucks team is and losing games. Do you really want to be putting the responsibility of these big games as we're getting deeper into the season on a rookie and a second-year player? Is that what you're telling me right now? Do you want to win a championship or do you want to develop young talent? Because you're not getting both. I promise.
And let me throw this out there: do you want them just pushed into the deep end, or do you want to teach them how to swim first?
That's true. I mean,
you got to work them in gradually, and that's what Doc Rivers is doing with AJ Green.
Yeah.
Just because he's not starting with Marjan and Ajax doesn't mean he's not working young players into the rotation. He's just starting with AJ Green.
Yeah, who knows? He could go into the next week and take all of AJ Green's minutes and put it on Andre Jackson Jr. and see how that fits. I mean, that's a great thought. That was very smart of you.
He's testing rotations.
Yeah, that's the thing that you got to do going into the playoffs, because you got to know what situations guys thrive in and where you can match guys up. So,
no, we're going to take 5 games and project them onto the rest of the season. That's what we're going to do instead.
Yeah. I think the Bucks have interesting roster makeup, honestly. And I don't think it's as bad as everybody is saying. But
it's because they're playing with all starters.
And Andre Jackson Jr. are 3 interesting guys to watch for the future. See if they can develop with a guy like Giannis and Damian Lillard. That could really take this roster into new heights if those guys develop. But again, I don't think the top 8 is as bad as people say it is.
No, it's people get whiny when the top 8 become, the top 2 plus, 4 through 11.
Can we touch on something real quick?
Sure.
I get that everybody's in love with Dante DiVincenzo right now because he's playing really, really good basketball. The Bucks had to make a decision at that time. Okay, they had to decide between Pat Connaughton and Dante. Dante was injured. Pat Connaughton was making big boy plays, and he continued to make big boy plays on the way to a championship. I don't know why I have to say this so loud.
They won a ring. The choice was correct. Bottom line.
And then you want to talk about Grayson Allen. Why would we get rid of Grayson Allen? He's leading the league in 3-point percentage. He fits on their roster. Really good.
He's literally the 4th option with 3, to your point, superstar offensive players. You don't think he's going to get good looks playing with Beal, Durant, and Booker?
Yeah.
You really don't think that there's going to be? You really think there's going to be a lot of defensive attention on Grayson Allen when you're playing against Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal?
Exactly. And those guys can all kill you from the mid-range.
Yeah.
So then, on top of that, did we win a ring with Grayson Allen? I don't remember. No, we didn't. And he played pretty good for us, too. Tyler and I were patting him on the back a lot last year for how he improved from year 1 to year 2 in a Milwaukee Bucks uniform. He played pretty good for us. He's
a good player.
Level. But it is what it is. We made a decision. We have Damian Lillard because of that decision.
And that's the thing, is that you have to give value to get value.
And you know what? When Damian Lillard's making game-winning shots in the second round of the playoffs, bro, I don't want to hear nothing. I don't want to hear nothing about Grayson Allen. I don't want to hear nothing about no Dante DiVincenzo, because we have Damian Lillard, dog.
Where is it? Oh, Steve's looking for receipts. Oh, here it is. I got it right here.
What's this? Hey. That's
the receipt. That's the receipt right there.
That's the receipt, baby. Right there.
All right. Let's answer Steve's question, and we'll cap this off. Steve asked, I'm curious, where do you guys rank Wisconsin sports fans across the board? High, mid, or low? If I go overall, I'll say they're somewhere in the mid to high. And if I'm being completely blatantly honest with you, the Green Bay Packers are absolutely carrying.
Yeah. Badgers fans aren't bad, but
Badgers fans they're a little wishy-washy at times. Yeah. And I think a new coaching change with the football team is kind of skewing that a little bit recently.
Yeah.
But I'll say Brewers fans, there's a lot of whiners out there. Bucks fans, there's a lot of spoiled fans out there.
Well, all right. So I agree with you that Packers fans are definitely carrying. We've had a lot of success over our lifetimes, for sure.
Yep.
Badgers fans, I agree, wishy-washy, although there are some really, really good ones that I've interacted with. Brewers, baseball is so weird. Baseball is so hard to judge, and baseball sucks because of the no salary cap.
Yeah, it's an uneven playing field.
Yeah, so for that reason, and everybody thinking that just spending money makes you magically win a ring, I mean, look at the Dodgers. The only ring they won was in a COVID year, dude.
Yeah.
Then you get to Bucks fans. There are an insane amount of bandwagon fans that jumped on the Bucks bandwagon back in 2016, 2017, when Giannis, won the most improved player and he was starting to get all the hype and he's going to be the next big thing and he starts winning MVPs and defensive player of the years. And so Bucks fans honestly might be the worst because, for one, not many people know ball. Let's just call it what it is. And they're just so whiny. They don't know anything. They just want to trade everybody. That's the thing that freaking kills me about today's cancel cultures. You know what? If you're not doing good, immediately when I'm watching the TV and I don't have my face stuffed in my phone, I'm trading you. Like, what? What?
And to me, I would say the whiniest among Wisconsin sports fans teams, as far as we're talking about and we fully understand that there are great fans in our fan bases. But there's also a large contingent of really shitty people. Sorry, if you feel that you're a shitty person when it comes to your fandom, when you hear this, whenever it happens, I'm not sorry.
Right.
Because if your generic overall response to anything that the Brewers do that doesn't immediately agree with you is fire the GM, sell the team, or trade everybody, what? Just stop. Just go away.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, and I'll say that with our show, we will tell people this. We understand that it potentially makes it so that our following is going to grow a little slower.
That's fine.
But when we end up in situations like this now, the people that do follow us and watch our stuff and comment along and are in some of our chat rooms and are commenting on our show like this, that's why we feel we've created such a quality following, because we have prioritized the quality of people over the quantity of people.
Steve's definitely goated, dude. Steve is definitely goated. Steve, every time that we start doing draft prep, by the way, I always think of you because you're so smart with the draft prep and you always comment along and watch all of our stuff, dude. So I'm really excited for the draft prep episodes that are going to be coming up, and Steve's going to be commenting along and telling me things that I had to research because he already researched it.
Steve made a good point on the baseball spending part of it. The Mets have spent over $1 billion on payroll since 2018, and which team has more success, Milwaukee or the Mets? And the answer is Milwaukee, and they haven't won it all since '86, and I get that the answer is that the Brewers haven't won it at all ever, which I still hold that Milwaukee has won a World Series in 1957 when they were the Braves. So the city of Milwaukee has seen a World Series. It's just that for some reason when the name of a team moved to a different city, apparently the ring doesn't count happening here because it happened with the franchise, not with the city.
It should be with the city, in my opinion, but whatever.
I agree. All right. That said, we're going to wrap it up. The Bucks have, I believe, 4 games. Yeah, 4 games. They play tomorrow against the Timberwolves, Friday against the Hornets, Monday against Denver again, and then Tuesday against Miami. So 2 back-to-backs, unfortunately, with 2 days off in between. So, it's not going to surprise me. Like I said, if Chris misses a couple weeks, hopefully Dame is back tomorrow. Other than that, relax. Give some time to let things improve, like I said, incrementally. And then I just want to throw out there that March 15th, that is a Friday. That is the 1 week that we don't have anything draft-wise going on or covering for the Packers. So March 15th, that Friday, Jake and I are going to do our Milwaukee Brewers primer that day. So we're going to be right in the thick of spring training. And we're working at getting a handful of awesome guests for that show. So that's going to be March 15th. Brewers primer is going to be solo on its own this year. So we're not cramming it into a Wednesday show. We're going to give it its own show this year. So we're really excited about that. March 15th, mark your calendars, 2024 Brewers primer. Steve, thank you. Everybody else who commented along and watched and stuck with us through our many rants this week, we appreciate it as well. And to anybody who's going to watch this after it airs, thank you, and we will be back on next Wednesday. No Friday show this week, so next Wednesday.
Invite your friends.